Can y'all hear me?
A little bit, but it's not good to speak.
Testing. Ah, there we are. Now I need to back up. All right. Okay. Again, this is a meeting of the Transportation and Infrastructure Committee. Today is Monday, January 8th. Our first item of business is consideration of the minutes from the December 11th, 2023 meeting. If there are no additions or corrections, we'll consider a motion to approve those minutes as written.
Move approval.
Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. That motion passes. Next item is item 3, attain grant resolution presented by Colin Alexander.
Good afternoon, committee. My name is Colin Alexander. I serve as senior planner with the Birmingham Department of Transportation. Before you is a standard grant resolution for another federal grant that we're looking to apply for at BDOT. We are looking to apply for an ATTAIN grant. This is a federal program that was created in the Bioinfrastructure Law a few years back, mostly geared towards technology improvements in the transportation sector. So what we're looking at doing is restoring and upgrading our communication cables for our signals in the city of Birmingham. We have about 700 signalized intersections. Of those, about 360 of them are connected using underground cables, which all run to the 9th floor at City Hall at our Transportation Management Center. Over the years, we have seen that system of communication deteriorate. Sometimes it's due to construction coming through and they hit a cable, it's not restored. And we, over the last several years, have been working on a plan for how to address this problem. And so this plan has helped us put into place a project that we feel would be very competitive for the ATTAIN program. We're asking for $5 million total, so $4 million federal, $1 million city, which would be coming from ARPA funds. And originally we were looking at 10 key corridors and thought that would be about the right price. Turns out that we can actually do more with that $5 million. So what we've realized is we can actually repair all of the known communication line issues in the city on that network as part of this grant. So that's what we're looking to apply for.
Excellent. Obviously, we're having some challenges with our new advanced audio system. Anyway, do we have an estimate of how many traffic signals that $5 million might cover?
So it's not going to, I think that's hard to quantify exactly because it's not going to fix a specific intersection. What it's going to do is it's looking at fixing the lines along corridors. So for instance, a good example is like the signals on University from 8th Street to 29th Street, right? Fixing all the communication cables along that corridor or some of our other corridors. We can definitely get you a list of intersections that are on our communication lines in terms of signalized intersections. That can give you a sense of all the networks, but it's those 360 intersections I mentioned should all be up and functioning in terms of communication lines.
So you're not suggesting that we attempt to repair those underground communication lines?
The suggestion is to upgrade them as much as we can to fiber or to Ethernet where possible, because a lot of them currently are copper.
Okay. So late last year, I had the ability to go and attend the Gulf States Regional Intelligent Transportation Society meeting in Mobile, and ended up having a discussion with the ALDOT engineer who, does this upgrades traffic signals. And in the Mobile area, they've been able to do, I forget what number he told me, but it was hundreds of signalized intersections that they've been able to upgrade the equipment. And, you know, basically, he told me that what they're doing is putting wireless technology in those traffic signals to essentially eliminate that problem of, you know, contractors cutting cables and, you know, undoing, you know, all of the efforts that go into coordinating signals and things like that. So, and that, you know, additionally, that there are some challenges with the old technology in terms of the clocks getting out of sync, and so using basically satellite provided information for the timing to keep those signalized intersections on schedule.
Sure, that's fair. I mean, I know that we do have long-range visions of better technology improvements, and to sort of speak to that and to speak to sort of how this tees that up, I'm going to turn this over to our deputy director from the department.
Okay.
Good afternoon. Kelvin Blevins, Service Deputy Director, Department of Transportation. As far as our communication lines, Mobile did go do with some wireless technology. The problem with wireless technology, if you decide to do video of any sort, then your bandwidth is taken up. So then you have a constant fee of also paying some cellular service. So some areas can do wireless. Wireless will be kind of hard downtown. Mobile may be line of sight with wireless because you have to put an antenna on each intersection when you're doing wireless technology. So there's some benefits and some cons to wireless technology. Fiber is the best option. Ethernet is the best option. It's faster. You can do video over it. We do have some wireless now that we're testing out in certain areas where we can do line of sight. So there's various options that we can do. And with this grant, we're looking at all three options,
Okay.
from wireless to Ethernet to fiber.
Okay. Other questions?
Not a question, just a comment. I think just along with your suggestion as far as adding in the highest possible bandwidth, just in case something gets added in the future. Cameras are possible, but could be something we're not thinking about that we may need that bandwidth for in the future. So
For me, the best option would probably be fiber, fiber or Ethernet. Like I said, if we decide to do some sort of video and get it back to the ninth floor for our TMC, that gives us the best option as far as wired technology.
yeah, I'm advocating for that just because it may be something down the road that may be beneficial to already have that in place. So.
Right.
Yeah, so one of the individuals that I spoke with at the Mobile conference was Brett Sellers, who's you know, Brett would be better positioned to be able to sort of explain, you know, what I'm suggesting with the wireless technology and that kind of stuff, but definitely want to, you know, wherever we can. It's long been an issue in the city that, you know, we've had this sort of outdated infrastructure in terms of our signals. I remember when Director Fowler came on board, he was telling me that our 6th Avenue facility was basically using, you know, old equipment to keep some of our stuff in good repair. So anyway.
I just want to add one note to it. Again, my name is James Fowler. I serve as the director of the city's Department of Transportation. Well, two notes. If we win the grant, we'll be working with a consultant to go through a pretty robust design phase, and so we're going to look corridor by corridor at each of the options. And in a lot of cases, a combination of options might be where we land. And in the case of fiber and Ethernet, it may be that the city doesn't have to install its own fiber lines. So there are, other services and companies that might have existing fiber that we can just tap into. So, as Kelvin mentioned, it's probably a variety of solutions just depending on where we're at in the city. So.
Yeah, that would be great, because, I don't know what our history has been whenever, our communications cables, have been cut, by various contractors or whatever. But, my impression is that the city hasn't been well positioned to sort of make those contractors repair that damage. And perhaps, some of those private sector carriers, internet service providers and, companies that own those fiber optic cables would be better positioned to take those sort of actions.
I was just going to say that Kelvin knows all that very well. So.
Yeah, you're correct. In the past, we did hold contractors responsible if they damage our lines, but that's when we catch them. With the communication lines, if they're down, we won't know they're down. Sometimes when they're damaged, if they don't see the signals going to flash, maybe no one calls about it. So a lot of times it gets pushed back and we don't know what contractor might have damaged it in the past. So like I said, the infrastructure is very old, and just having the resources to repair it is a lot.
Okay. All right. So you guys are specifically looking for council, or this committee to recommend to the full council?
Yes, that's correct, for the grant application portion.
Okay. So, we'll entertain a motion to recommend this to the full council for approval.
Let me ask, what date do you anticipate award or decisions being made?
That's always a challenge with USDOT to really know exactly when we're going to get awarded. The grant is due February 2nd. So if we take on average, let's say a 6 to 9 month period, so we could be looking at late summer.
Oh, well, we expect 2024.
I would think so, yes, because they'll do another round early 25, so they'll have to announce awards before that.
Just looking at it from the ARPA timetable point of view.
Yeah, no, we've vetted this with leadership and with the Stimulus Command Center to make sure that we could use these funds, and they've looked at it and determined that we could.
So, just follow up, is this strictly a design and engineering, project, or is there construction?
There is construction.
Okay. All right. Do you know roughly what proportions of the funding would go to each? I mean, I kind of sort of asked you this. I think what matters to folks on the back end is, how many signals are going to get fixed as a result of this, but you couldn't answer that earlier, so.
Right.
Yeah. Can you shed any light on what the 10 corridors are?
Probably not off the top of my head. I'll give you a couple. 20th Street, Ensley, Richard Arrington Jr. Boulevard, University Boulevard.
Highway 78?
Highway 78 is a state highway. It's currently on the RTOP project, so their communication is up and running. And they use fiber to get their intersections back up and running.
Okay.
So it'll be some of those intersections that are not on the RTOP project or a state highway
Okay.
that we maintain.
All right. What about in the downtown area, in some of the city surface streets?
Downtown area would be RAJ Boulevard South. We currently have RAJ Boulevard North from Woods to First Avenue North. I think is currently operating. The south side we do have some issues out of. So to get the south side from RAJ, from Powell to probably up to Magnolia or 22nd Street before you get on the interstate to 280. That's one corridor. University Boulevard from, I want to say 11th, probably as far as to 27th, around St. Vincent's Hospital is one. That's another. Green Springs is
Yeah,
another.
Green Springs,
Yeah, Green
yeah.
Springs is another.
Jefferson Avenue.
I don't think Jefferson Avenue is on there. But if we can get the funding, some of those will be added to it as we look deeper into it to see how much what we can do with it. Some of the funding, some of the intersections may be more of a repair than to replace.
Okay. All right. Sounds good.
Yeah, I would just ask that we bring, just maybe a summary of what we think the anticipated targets are. But I'm gonna send this to, full council to positive recommendation.
Second.
All right. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right. That motion passes. Next up, we have the Rebuild Alabama Annual Grant Resolution.
Yes, this is another grant resolution. We are searching for a affirmative vote from this committee to the council. This one is looking at the 21st Avenue South corridor between 21st Street, just to the east of the Red Mountain Expressway, back towards the city limits with Mountain Brook. This project has a couple of origin points. So a couple years ago, there was a traffic calming request for 21st Avenue South. And we did some design work. It was recommended through our committee to include some bike lane infrastructure and some speed cushions. And we were moving through that process, and we put the project on hold because there was another effort in the area, the Red Mountain Cut Foundation. They're looking at a larger trail network. They want to rehab and revitalize the old Red Mountain Museum Trail, and they also, as part of their proposal, what caught our attention was they want to do improvements along 21st Avenue South, going all the way from Homewood to Mountain Brook. Their recommendations were very similar to what our traffic calming recommendations were. A two-way cycle track, some sidewalk improvements, and so we wanted to kind of see how that was going to play out. Last year, the Red Mountain Cut Foundation had approached us to apply for a TAP grant, but we told them we had a different priority for that cycle, which was the 15th Avenue North project that we were awarded last year. They tried to find another sponsor for the TAP grant to do the whole corridor. That kind of fell apart. And so in the ensuing year, we've been trying to figure out how best we could support, especially on that 21st Avenue corridor, this effort. And so what we settled upon is going after a Rebuild Alabama grant. So this is a small grant from ALDOT. It's $250,000. We won a Rebuild Alabama grant last year on a similar project for Graymont, to build a complete street from Arkadelphia Road all the way to 15th Street past Bush Boulevard. So that project, we're hoping to have a PO here soon in the next couple weeks, and we'll start moving forward with that project. So in the meantime, we're going to take a portion of the 21st Avenue project, and we're only going to focus on the roadway. We're not going to focus on the sidewalk or on the portion to the west of Red Mountain Expressway. We're just going to focus on the roadway and get the protected two-way cycle track as well as some on-street parking and included in the corridor.
Can you speak a little bit about existing conditions along 21st Avenue currently?
So 21st Avenue is a residential street, but it's kind of a unique residential street because it really connects Red Mountain Expressway, so US 280/31, with the commercial district in English Village, especially on this eastern corridor. So it's a lot of through traffic, and there's a sidewalk currently that goes from English Village to about 22nd Street. So that's really all that's available there. People still park on intermittently along 21st Avenue in front of the houses. There's no bike infrastructure currently. So the goal is to make this eventually a bikeable corridor from Mountain Brook all the way back to Richard Arrington to connect with our Greenway project. But we're going to start with this, at least from the city of Birmingham's perspective, we're going to start with this small section.
Okay,
And it's $250,000 with no local match required.
okay. And it would only address the eastern half of 21st
Yes.
Avenue between the expressway and
And
English
Mountain Brook.
Village? Yeah,
Yes, that's correct.
okay. So, I'm guessing this looks like, paint and some sort of delineators?
That's correct. We're looking at paint. We're looking at probably potentially some concrete bulb outs on the. So that if we'd have the two-way cycle track on one side of the street, the other side would be on-street parking. We'd have some intermittent concrete bulb outs to kind of really firm that up. There'd be delineators to protect the bike lane. We're looking at things like Quick Curb, for instance, so that does some really high-quality protected bike lane infrastructure. So that's how that project would pan out.
Okay. And just, for the purpose of sharing with my colleagues, a lot of the reason that this corridor has garnered some attention is because the Red Mountain Cut Foundation is extremely interested in connecting 21st Avenue over to Arlington through that Red Mountain Cut. So 21st Avenue would be the southern component of that corridor. There's also plans to restore and expand upon the Mineral Trail and do improvements along the Arlington Gateway as well. So, all right. Any questions? Any additional questions?
I think we're good. Move we send this to the full council with a positive recommendation.
Second?
All right, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right, that
All right, thank you.
aye, the motion passes. Next up, we have Mr. Todd Stennis with us, Director of Government Affairs for the South for the National Railroad Passenger Corporation, AKA Amtrak.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. I'm going to be brief because I'm going to turn this over to my colleague Lindsay Bates. But we briefed you all last year on where we are with the ADA project over at the Birmingham Jefferson County Intermodal Center on the railroad side of the infrastructure there. Amtrak has a ADA project there that we are responsible for and we are funding. And we are in the latter stages of the design of that project, getting ready to advance that. So at this time, I want to turn this over to Lindsay Bates and let her give you the presentation and update on where we are with that project.
Awesome.
Good afternoon, everyone. Again, my name is Lindsay Bates. The project has been just kind of clicking along, very pleased with its progress so far, so let me just bring you up to speed on everything that we've got going on. The ADA Act of 1990 mandated that all stations that are served by Amtrak must be made ADA accessible. Our program serves to bring all station components for which Amtrak has responsibility for into compliance with the ADA. This involves parking that we might have responsibility for, waiting rooms, and of course platforms that are owned by the host railroad. Our improvements must adhere to the 2006 Department of Transportation Accessibility Standards, our Amtrak engineering standards, and guidelines that are recommended by the State Historic Preservation Office. So our scope of work at the Birmingham station includes, we have ADA responsibility for the platform, for egress off of the platform, and for that former waiting room, and obviously vertical transportation to access that platform. The intermodal facility is owned by BJCTA, and so we only lease space within that property. We do not have ADA accessibility responsibility. Yes. Oh, gosh. Thought I was on it, no?
Yeah, we're trying to get your presentation on the monitors.
Well, it just worked a minute ago, right? Okay. Go to slideshow. And then go from from current slide. There we go. Gosh. Right about there. Sorry about that, everyone. So presently, the current station includes 2,000-foot long low-level island platforms. When we say low level, we mean they're at or above the elevation of the track. The north platform, which is the one that's closer to the facility, is no longer in service as there are no tracks. All of our services are currently on the south platform. The existing platforms right now are concrete, but they're in fairly deteriorated condition. Again, at top of rail, they have limited signage and limited lighting. A canopy covers the length of both platforms, and the canopies are also in need of some repairs. Again, this just kind of shows that right-of-way line in between the BJCTA intermodal facility and the CSX-owned property. All of our repairs are south of that red line there. We do have a couple items for ADA compliance in that CSX area, but they're very, very minor. It's a door and a handrail. So this graphic, I think here shows best what we're doing. So essentially what we're doing is moving everything from that south platform to the north platform. We intend to rebuild a track in the middle of those two platforms and another one on the far north side. The new platform will be 24 feet wide, 900 feet long, and the part that we're most excited about is that it's going to be 48 inches above top of rail, which we consider level boarding. This is very exciting for us because since most of our stations are, the tracks are actively used by the host railroad, they have their high and wide cars, and we can't build anything that's level boarding. Here we have this unique opportunity to do so. We'll also be replacing the canopy in kind for the north platform. This shows it in plan view. Again, what's highlighted in yellow is the north platform that we'll be rebuilding and relocating all of our services to. I think here we point out, let me see, I have the elevator for the baggage services on the west end. We'll be replacing one of the stairwells with an escalator and the other stairwell with an elevator. This is our interior plan. It shows the scope of work. Again, just kind of reiterating that we'll be installing a baggage elevator on that west end there. This calls out replacing the door in the CSX facility. Again, stairwells, elevators, and all of that space will be fully enclosed and therefore will be conditioned. Concurrently, over the past couple of years, we've had a couple other projects by Amtrak, different departments, however. Just wanted to highlight a couple of those. We've put in all new LED light panels and applied we refreshed the interior finishes. This is all done by our facilities group. We've also done some minor platform lighting repairs and installed wayfinding signage last year. And we've done a little bit of cleanup in that interior space, removing some of the old payphones, removing the TVs, water fountains. And our third project at Birmingham is what we call SOGR, State of Good Repair. We will be doing waterproofing in the tunnel. That will be performed concurrently with all of the track work that will be happening with the ADA project. There will also be some stabilization repairs to the south platform and the canopy. The next steps for the ADA project is that our design was completed in 2023. Right now, all of our third-party approvals have been obtained. We are awaiting a stormwater review from the city. However, we don't foresee any problems since we're not increasing the impervious area. We are also still waiting for CSX to execute the lease agreement, but we do foresee that happening in the next couple months. So we are hoping to go to procurement and start construction in summer of 2024. The SOGR project, again, the design was also completed in 2023. They are still seeking some third-party approvals from CSX and BJCTA. But again, we intend to start that project in fall of 2024, so just after the ADA project starts. And facilities, the work was completed in 2022 and 23. Any questions?
Yeah, just a review. So are both platforms going to be addressed in this? I mean, I think at one point you had mentioned that the south platform specifically wasn't going to be utilized, but then part of your presentation is south platform surface repairs and canopy stabilization. So is that a temporary situation that you would only utilize the north platform? I'm just trying to understand.
Sure, yeah. So we're going to be constructing the north platform, and our period of construction is probably 18 to 24 months. Right now, the south platform does have some significant concerns that could be a safety hazard. So the SOGR project is to, I guess it is a temporary repair to get us through the end of our north platform construction.
Okay, I got you. But long-term, it would just be the north platform that would be
Yes.
remaining?
Correct. The intention is to use the north platform once it is complete.
Okay,
And of course, you know, it's nice to have the flexibility of the south platform in case of emergencies or train layovers or, you know, baggage or something like that. So,
yeah, so there's no long-term intention to, say, demolish the south platform?
not at this time,
Okay,
and not by ADA.
okay. Questions?
Just real quick, thank you for your presentation. I want to make sure I'm correct. The north track is not in use,
Correct.
but the north platform is getting, that's where you're raising that up to 48 inches?
Yes, so we're doing this project in a couple different phases. So phase one will be the demolition of everything north. So the north platform will be demolished, those tracks that are there will be demolished. Phase two will be part of the waterproofing project, because we need to waterproof that roof over the tunnel area. Phase three will begin track work, and then phase four will be the north platform construction.
Thank you.
Yeah, so the picture on page 6 of the presentation gives you a good idea of what that north track looks like currently. It's basically a siding off of that main line.
Correct.
Okay,
And we'll be building a second, we'll actually be putting in two tracks. So we'll be rebuilding that one in between the two platforms, and then another one to the far north of that platform.
oh, okay. Good deal. So this is good to hear. Wish it could have happened like 5 years ago. But it is what
tried.
it is. I was curious, I'm thinking about the train station, and admittedly, you know, I probably haven't spent as much time there as I probably should have, but, does Amtrak, you know, manage that space?
Yes, we have Bob here
Okay, okay,
to
so,
help. Maybe, you know, maybe he can answer any questions, but
this is getting off on a tangent, but, you know, the council is, doing some work to evaluate our communication strategy, and so, thinking about the Shuttlesworth International Airport, you know, there's, communications from, you know, the mayor and such at Birmingham Shuttlesworth Airport, and there's been some interest from the council in doing likewise, but, we should probably also, look at opportunities to do that at the train station, so be curious to explore that topic. Thank you for the presentation. So we anticipate work starting this year
yes.
on the demolition and the waterproofing of the tunnel. And the work will continue into 2025 and be completed in 2025, correct?
Probably a little bit longer. Again, our period of performance is 18 to 24 months, probably closer to 24 with the track work.
Okay.
So if we start this summer, then we're looking at 2026 completion.
So talk to me about what we're doing in the intermediate time to address ADA issues. Because it's been a long-standing, you know, kind of concern of people who are utilizing Amtrak. Currently, there's not an escalator, and there's not a strictly passenger elevator either.
Correct.
So,
I'm gonna, Bob, do you want to speak on how you transport ADA passengers? Bob can give you a better idea of the operations.
Currently, the only way to handle them is via a freight elevator. This part of the station is approximately 90 years old, and for the entire time, anyone that required the assistance had to use a freight elevator.
okay.
And we have carts that we carry people in, motorized carts that we handle a lot. Anyone needs assistance like that.
So are the trains themselves, the cars, equipped with lifts, wheelchair lifts?
The cars are not, but we have lifts to, external of the train to lift people. Anyone in a wheelchair can't walk up steps.
Okay. For folks who, you know, have mobility challenges that are wanting to utilize Amtrak, should they call ahead and make arrangements?
Yeah, Amtrak has a system where when you make your reservation, that you tell us what you need, and it gets communicated to us, and we handle it.
Okay, thank you. All right, so this was just really an update. I really appreciate it, and look forward to work starting. Any time frame where we could start to see some of this demolition happening?
I'm gonna say summer. Again, the only thing we have in our way right now is the execution of the lease with CSX. That has been outstanding for some time, so I hope to see resolution soon, and our liaison to CSX has, you know, indicated in a positive way that things will come to a conclusion. But I'm hesitant to put a firm date on it because, you know, I don't want to jinx myself, so.
Okay, understood. All right.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. All right, next up on our agenda, we have a update on Birmingham On Demand, presented by Christina Argo of BDOT.
We're getting used to the new setup.
Yes.
Great, okay. And I'm just going to introduce our partners. I'm Christina Argo, and I serve as the Strategic Projects and Innovation Division Manager for the Department of Transportation. And I'm happy to have our partners here today with VIA, who have been operating our microtransit service for the last 3 years. This is Eric Gardner, and he's going to give you guys kind of a mid-year update of where our service is, and just, yeah, take it away, Eric. Thank you.
Hi, good afternoon to the, is that too loud? I want to eat the meatball here. Good afternoon to the committee. Thank you very much for having us today, and excited to give you an update on the state of the service and give you a snapshot of what's transpired with Birmingham On Demand since we last got to speak and give you an update. My name is Eric Gardner. I'm the Director of East Coast Partnerships at VIA. I'm also joined in the audience, and she can come up for questions as well, Ariel Panich, who's the General Manager for the service. So just to give you a snapshot, overall statistics, over the last 6 months, the service has had 2,700 rides per week. And that's from over 11,000 riders, which represents about 6% of the city's population. The average ride rating for an on-demand trip is 4.8 out of 5. That's an average from 2023. And in the downtown area specifically, the cost per ride is around $17, which, just to benchmark that, if you compare it to what the average network-wide cost per trip is, or cost per ride for BJCTA, is around $16. So very comparable and good benchmark there, especially given that it's microtransit. We'll get into the numbers here. We can show you we have some really high utilization, meaning rides per vehicle hour, in terms of how efficient the service has been. And just to kind of start from the beginning, we of course started the service with the Community Foundation in Birmingham in December 2019. Experienced a lot of growth, and then, as all public transit systems did at the time, a little bit of a bump going into COVID, but actually, as you can see there, had steady ridership increase because it was a lifeline for those that still need to get around during the pandemic. And then it was in March 2021 that we actually exceeded for the first time our pre-COVID numbers. The next kind of increase or historical ridership note was in July during the World Games. And then shortly after that, we had the opportunity to not only add the East Side Zone with the city, but also collaborate with the BJCTA to run the downtown nighttime service. The three colors you see there, the yellow and red, are the yellow is the East Side Zone, and the red is the downtown zone from 8 to 11 p.m. As you can see, those have also steadily grown over the last year, including last May, when we had the opportunity to help cover some of the sunsetted lines due to driver shortages from BJCTA for routes 12, 18, and 43 by adding slightly more service area to the daytime zone. And as you can see, we're running the service at full capacity. So the blue line there is the average monthly budget derived from the not to exceed amount on the contract, and the red is what the city is monthly spending to give the amount of rides that you saw in the first on my first slide. And I think the message here is very much that we are operating right at capacity. I know there's been some requests to do a little bit more marketing. We could potentially look to do that, especially in the east zone, because there's a little room to grow there. But again, in the downtown zone, we're definitely kind of operating right at capacity right now. And not only residents of the county, because now BJCTA is obviously part of the service with the downtown nighttime service, but also city residents love and rely on microtransit. We took a survey using the rider-based application and had 185 respondents. And of those, 90% said they would be somewhat or very disappointed without the service. 86% that said that they ride for affordability or convenience. 38% said that expanding the coverage area would be the best way to improve the service. And about half mentioned commuting to work or to school as their primary use case. And just to add some qualitative quotes there in addition to the stats, you can see that we got some tremendous responses back, including excellent service. Thanks so much for caring. I think we've really been able to be a part of the community down here, including our driver partners, which are all locally hired, and been able to serve the city and its residents. Now I'll just do a kind of brief review of the three zones themselves and how they're operating. And just to remind everyone, so originally there's the kind of downtown daytime core service that operates Monday through Friday, 6 a.m. to 7 p.m., and Saturday from 10 a.m. to 7 p.m. We have about 8,600 average rides per month in that downtown core area. The downtown nighttime zone is slightly larger. That's in the purple section that kind of overlays over the core zone. During that time, that only operates 7 p.m. to 11 p.m. We have about 1,600 rides per month on average, and that's in the downtown nighttime zone. And then the east side zone is Monday to Friday, almost the same hours with an additional hour into the evening on weekdays and Saturdays from the core, with about 1,100 rides per month in the east side zone. Looking at the core service area, we've been able to really effectively serve and grow ridership while also becoming more efficient. So really encouraging to see here that over the last year, quarter over quarter compared to Q4 of last year, or Q4 of 2022 rather, the completed rides went up by 30%. Active riders went up by 43%, and that was all while we were able to increase utilization by about 1 up to 3.6 riders per vehicle hour. In the east side zone, the ridership has tripled since its launch just a year ago. As you can see here, there was a bit of a summer bump that we think is probably attributable to the fact that that's when the core downtown zone also expanded slightly, and we expected to see a bit of a ridership bump there. But I think what's really impressive here is that the monthly record for ridership was actually during the holidays, which is usually when we see a little bit of a dip across our other services. So really encouraging growth here. And in the nighttime zone, ridership also continues to grow. So looking at this chart here, in blue is the downtown service from 7 to 8 p.m. Everything in red is what BJCTA is funding for nighttime service in the downtown area. And as you can see, that's steadily grown over the last year. There's now about 1,600 rides per month in total that are being delivered downtown as a result of the BJCTA collaboration for the nighttime zone. And again, if you look at the map at left in kind of slightly red shade versus the map at blue, you'll see a slightly larger area for the core downtown near point of interest 4, the Fountain Heights Recreation Center. You'll see the zone is kind of grown there to the north, as well as to the southeast to capture the Birmingham Zoo. That was a modification to the core downtown zone to account for the loss of accessibility and rides that residents had access to when they had to sunset routes 12, 18, and 43. So again, the city was able to do that and start covering those areas in May 2023. And since then, we've seen downtown daytime demand grow around 15%. And just looking at kind of average monthly demand since sunsetting those 3 fixed routes in May, you can see right when in Q2, when they were sunsetted, you'll see increased ridership per month in Q3 and Q4, and we can kind of attribute that to the fact that there's increased ridership as a result of that increased coverage area of the downtown zone. And then lastly, just a brief update on how accessible the service is. What you see here are a side-by-side of the experience for those that are requesting a wheelchair accessible vehicle and those that aren't on the right-hand side. So overall, those that are requesting a wheelchair accessible ride, about 6% of the rides they're given by the service. You can see very comparable percentages of met demand as well as ETAs and overall ride rating. And then lastly, excited to share that, since this has grown from a community foundation funded service in 2019 through when the city took it over in 2020, continue to invest and grow in it and grow to the East Zone, and then also collaborate with BJCTA to provide a downtown nighttime service as well. The next step in this is that the BJCTA has recently chosen to add 3 more zones in suburban areas of Jefferson County, including Homewood, Vestavia Hills, and Hoover, and those should be launching in early March of this year. So we're very, very excited and thankful to the city and BGCTA for their partnership in helping operate this on-demand service, and happy to take any questions that you have.
Sure. Got a few. So I believe the service agreements with Homewood, Vestavia, and Hoover are still in negotiation. Is that right?
We've actually finalized those.
Okay.
Yeah, so we've signed the contract with BJCTA for those 3 zones.
Okay. So tell me a little bit about connectivity to the city of Birmingham from those municipalities, from those service areas.
So right now, what we're talking to BJCTA about doing is turning on what we call kind of an intermodal or multimodal rider experience, which would effectively allow a rider to book a ride, and the first leg of that might be microtransit, connecting to a max transit fixed route that takes them ultimately to their downtown or city destination, for example. But that would be the experience that they'd have, but it'd be a kind of a multi-leg trip.
Yeah. It's good to hear. I'm kind of, I have conversations with colleagues in some of those municipalities, and what I've heard from them is that historically they've been underwhelmed by the utilization of traditional fixed route public transportation, and I've heard some of them express the idea of doing one or the other, but perhaps not both. So it sounds like you guys have made some progress, and it's important issue to address because there's a significant number of people who commute into the city of Birmingham on a daily basis, for employment or whatever, and they're coming, from those municipalities, and we definitely, from our standpoint, looking at the system as a whole, want the system designed such that public transportation is a reasonable option for them to consider. So that's good to hear. You addressed the wait time. So for wheelchair accessible vehicle riders, it's on average 16 minutes, and non-WAV riders on average 10 minutes. Another issue that came up recently is school attendance and truancy. So if you pay attention to local politics, that you'll know that the Mayor Woodfin, had some things to say about the recent school report card. I had a follow-up conversation with him talking about transportation being a component of those outcomes. Currently, it is Birmingham City Schools policy that if a child lives within 2 miles of the school, that they not be provided transportation from the school system. And that is, I think we're encouraging them to reevaluate that policy because for any child, that is a significant difference. But especially, if I had an elementary age child, I wouldn't be asking them to walk 2 miles across the city of Birmingham to go to school on a daily basis. So that brings me to my question. What is the policy for Birmingham On Demand with regard to minors? Can I, as a parent or a guardian, book a ride for a child and then, will Birmingham On Demand pick up that child?
13, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so currently and this is a function of of state regulation as well, is 13 is the age at which someone can book a ride themselves on Birmingham On Demand. In other services that we have, for example, one in Arizona that was primarily designed around after-school mobility for apprenticeships, extracurricular activities, school and home, we have seen younger ages transported, but oftentimes there's extra safeguards or that are attached to those types of trips, depending on how the pupil is. And that may extend to things like driver vetting, as well as only pooling students as opposed to students and the general population, depending on their age. Long story short, in Birmingham, you have to be at least 13 to book a ride. But there are ways for us to potentially look at adding that functionality in the future so that a caregiver could book a ride for a student, for example, so they didn't have to walk 2 miles.
Yeah, so if a child is younger than 13, they have to be accompanied by an adult or someone age at least 13 years old?
18 years old.
18 years or older, yeah.
Okay. So if I got a 10-year-old, they have to be with at least an 18-year-old person. And it's still the policy that in those situations that the person booking the ride pays full price and the second party, if there's an additional passenger, they pay half price. Is that still the policy?
Pay $1.
Yeah, they pay $1 for the secondary rider.
Okay, so the first rider pays $1.50 and secondary rider pays $1. Okay.
Correct, yeah.
All right.
But I would just add that there are ways to, for example, in the future, if we could give out what we call promotional codes within the app, and that would you could offer kind of concessions based on who the rider is. So if they were transporting a student that was over 13, if we, for example, the city or the school district didn't want to charge them the full fare, it's possible to have that be anywhere from reduced to fare free for them.
Yeah. Well, I'm just thinking about, I hear stories from people who grew up in Birmingham years ago when, downtown was thriving, and I'm thinking about people who grew up in my own neighborhood going over to Woodlawn and catching the bus on First Avenue to go downtown. And, these are 8, 9, and 10-year-old kids. They could, for a quarter, they could get the bus ride, go downtown, see a movie, have some popcorn, go to the soda fountain, all that good stuff. Those are stories that I hear about. But more practically speaking, I'm thinking about the context of our education system. I just had this conversation with the mayor earlier. one of the outcomes of those state school report cards is that parents will now have the option to receive a state voucher. They have the option, they have three options. One is to send their kid to another school in the system, and the school system has to provide transportation for them. Alternatively, they will have the option to send their child to private school and receive a state voucher to pay for that, but transportation will not be provided. And the third option is to keep them at that school. But all of that to say that in addressing our transportation, or in addressing our education challenges, I firmly believe that transportation is an important consideration in addressing that issue, because I think in a lot of cases where we're seeing chronic truancy, transportation is one of the major considerations that's contributing to that situation. But that being said, it sounds like we need, like additional conversation is needed to determine whether or not Birmingham On Demand is a component of solving that issue.
I think it certainly can be, and there are conditions under which we could provide elements of the service just for limited hours that would allow for those under 13 to also receive rides. It would just need to be kind of scoped for those specific time periods.
Right.
Yeah.
Talk to me, so my understanding is that a lot of Birmingham On Demand users use the service specifically to go grocery shopping. Talk to me about how that works, because obviously going grocery shopping involves, getting groceries and transporting them back home. So how do you guys handle that, when a person's got baggage?
Yeah, sure. Well, it's not, usually the bags are, they don't have so many bags that they can't, for example, put the bags in the back of the trunk or right near them where they're sitting in the vehicle when they transport it.
Yeah.
And outside of that, we try and keep the ETA such that you can still transport frozen groceries as well. But they don't have to indicate currently in the app that they have X number of bags, for example. They just book a ride, and usually there's enough space in the vehicle itself to carry those bags.
Yeah, so it's basically standard practice that you guys could accommodate that sort of thing.
Yes.
Okay.
And we've seen that the Publix as well as Piggly Wiggly are some of the top destinations for Birmingham On Demand rides.
Right. One of the stats that you listed was 11,268 riders. I'm going to assume that those are unique individuals.
Part of the service.
Yeah, but the total number of rides is well in excess of 200,000 at this point, right?
Yes,
Since December of 2019 is when we launched.
that is correct.
Yeah.
We see a lot of repeat riders. We see riders who use the service, 4 or 5 times a week. I think the average is about 10 times a month, but we can get back to you with the specific stats there.
Yeah. So it's probably one of the best deals in Birmingham that's, a lot of people still don't know about. I routinely run across people that are engaged citizens that, I'm telling them something like they're shaking their head going, what? So talk to me a little bit about marketing and continuing to get the word out. I mean, you mentioned that the downtown zone is pretty much at capacity. But let's just talk about the east zone, you know, how do we increase ridership over there?
Sure, so you want to talk about what marketing has been done on the east side so far? And
Sure, yeah, so we've run paid social campaigns. We can do promotions, so we could do that again. We have owned assets, so we can do pop-ups in the app. We can send emails to riders who may have created an account but never ridden, or maybe who rode once and have not come back. So we can engage some of those, you know, more dormant riders. I think also as we're approaching this expansion into the Vestavia Hills, Hoover, and Homewood, we'll be doing a lot of press around that, and that will, you know, rising tides lift all ships. I think that we'll see ridership increase in the east side as well as downtown at all hours due to that increased awareness.
Okay.
I think we just want to be careful with the downtown zone during daytime hours, because if we see too much of an increase in ridership there due to the marketing, we'll see a decrease in the quality of service potentially. You know, we might see those wait times go up.
Right. One of the other things I had a question about was you used the term active riders. I forget what slide that was, but tell me what active means in this context.
So I think we use that slide when we talk about the core service. And for that, I looked at unique riders who use that service during that quarter. So for Q4 2023, during daytime hours downtown, we saw over 1,700 unique riders.
Okay. I mean, does active mean like repeat, they have utilized the service more than once, or?
We can look at those trends over time. We were just looking during that distinct period in time, how many individual riders use that service.
Okay. I think I understand. Other members of the committee have any questions?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I wanted to make sure I'm interpreting y'all's delineation between capacity and then actual demand. And so I think on the last page, you've kind of got this at like, just say non-WAV riders, 94% met demand. Is that just speaking to, what does that 6% represent? Like demand that you didn't have the capacity to meet, or just some other reason? So that's what it.
It's the demand that we don't have the capacity to meet. So I believe currently our parameters are if a van is too far away or there's too much demand at a certain time, that you would get a proposal that's over 30 minutes, then you'll get an error message that there's not a van available at that time.
Okay. And then what is it, I guess, just projection wise? Because I know we're kind of working off a certain budget, but zooming out, I mean, we need, long-term solutions for various transit-related issues. And so I guess I'm just interested in, with additional advertising, just kind of based off what you've seen, because I feel like we've kind of got it capped now, but if it was kind of unconstrained, like what type of growth pattern would you expect?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think we can, do a deeper dive on that. I think in the east side, we would like to see continued growth there, and we have seen that trend. And, right now I think we're at about 1,150 riders per month. I would love to see that grow to be about, 1,500. I think that's where the service may stabilize. I think, downtown we've seen continue to grow year over year. What did we see last year? About 30%. I think we won't see jumps quite that dramatic moving forward, but I think unconstrained we could certainly see, 10%, maybe even 20% growth.
That's probably in line with in my mind, what our budget growth could be, but I'll pass it back over.
Yes, ma'am, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. What's the likelihood of expansion on the western side of town? Like where are you at plan, I know you're probably in East Lake, are you like North Birmingham, Ensley, are you in those areas? What's the likelihood of that happening in the near future?
Yes, so right now we only serve as far west during you can see the furthest west we serve is during the nighttime zone. You can see it expanded there. During the daytime, it's basically to about the Piggly Wiggly on Bernie Points. There's an opportunity, if budget were to expand, to look at increasing the size of the service area on the west side, certainly. I think it basically just depends on what the budget is and what the goals are of the city in terms of the zones that already do exist and driving up ridership in those areas versus adding a new zone or expanding an existing one. But it's certainly possible.
Okay.
Oh, sorry. Yeah,
No,
sorry.
you're great, you're great. So yeah, certainly, expansion is something that we can talk about. Where we've seen a lot of success in the east side zone is using microtransit as a way to get folks on the BRT. And so that's certainly an opportunity on the west side as well. And so we will be working with our partners here to come up with some ideas and scenarios for what service in the next fiscal year could look like. And Southwest is on our list. So yeah, we certainly, but, as they mentioned, we are maxed out at our current budget level. So just keep that in mind, but we will definitely have some ideas and some scenarios to present to you guys.
Do you have any idea of how many people or what percentage of the ridership is utilizing Birmingham On Demand to connect to the Birmingham Express?
We can get that number. I know that I believe it is the number one destination in the east side zone, right behind, or maybe it's right behind the Walmart, but it's right there, but we could get that number for you.
Okay,
Yeah, that'd be a good thing to look at.
all right. So just a comment to Counselor Tate. I think in my conversations with BDOT, our current zone format is not the ideal situation that we envision for long-term. So, just want to interject that I feel like we're in a transition period, moving from circumstances when I came into office where you had essentially one option, fixed route buses, and that was it. There, on demand did exist, but you had to, it wasn't really on demand as in modern day standards. On demand now means, I request something and I get it 15 minutes later. On demand prior to modern day standards was I schedule a ride 2 days in advance and then I can get the service. So getting back to my original point, I think the current layout of what on-demand microtransit looks like in the city of Birmingham is, will be evolving. What the timeline is for that evolution, I can't say. It really depends a lot on our partners at the BJCTA and how our relationship continues to develop there. And there's, even been the suggestion that this type of service should be available to anyone in the entirety of Jefferson County. Obviously that's aspirational, but I think it's there's some precedent for that type of system. So in any case, we can get to the west side. How we get there, I'm not sure.
I mean, there are cities that have pretty much converted all the way, like all over to on-demand microtransit type options. I mean, literally dumped the entire, well, dump the entire budget into, or transit budget into, now they may be smaller, laid out differently, but that is something that's happening, is microtransit being more the primary option, so. Dream.
So, talking of, that kind of feeds into the cost per ride situation. So, on average, our average cost per ride is a little higher than what you would have for conventional public transportation, which is understandable. It's a, in my opinion, more convenient service. So you're kind of paying what you get, paying for what you get. But to your point, just in terms of efficiencies, we do have some fixed routes lines that actually perform really well. And for the amount of ridership that they have, those buses are the most effective and cost-effective solution. In general, my understanding is that for on-demand microtransit, that really works best in situations where you have 12 to 15 riders or less per hour. Is that accurate?
That's generally correct, yeah. So general rule of thumb is kind of like if you have a fixed route that's whose productivity is anywhere near 10 riders per vehicle hour or less, it's generally a good candidate to consider converting to an on-demand model, so you can serve a larger area with a better quality of service.
Right.
I would add though that it was very encouraging with the May coverage edition to see the increase in ridership, because it was kind of the seeds of proof that the on-demand service is really supplementing and working as a complement to the BJCTA routes that are in high-capacity corridors and running, which we think is kind of the best use of microtransit, is when it's working holistically with the entire network to achieve that kind of like across the entire whole of network lowest cost per trip possible for an area.
Finally,
Yes.
just to piggyback off what President O'Quinn said earlier about, the marketing aspect of this, can you guys provide us like a one-pager where when we are going out to community meetings that we can distribute this information? Because it was interesting to hear when he said some people didn't, know about this. So I just, think for me, education and marketing is so key in a lot of things that we're doing in this city where people are, unaware of what is transpiring. So if you guys can get that to the 9 of us, I think that would be, we can definitely make sure that people are aware that these services are available to them. And then also, finally, to conclude and do a deeper dive, to help eliminate the truancy rate, in this city, to make sure that those that are in need of rides are able to get back and forth, to school. So I think it's somewhere where we all can like sit down and, because all this stuff intersects. Mm-hmm. And we can figure out a solution to solve, what is going on. Thank you.
All right. Yes, thank you. All right, so under, Christina, please stay where you're at. So under new and old business, I have some questions for you.
All right.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
So in accordance with our agreement with BJCTA, we're due to have a session with them, a meeting with them this month to evaluate data. Do we have a date for that yet?
I don't believe so. Do you have a date, Dr. Fowler? No, not yet.
Okay. And also on that topic, just want to make mention that there is a state of transportation presentation tomorrow night at the Birmingham Museum of Art, starting at 5:30. I sent the council links to try out the autonomous vehicle demo. I didn't sign up because I've done it twice before already, and I didn't want to
I
take
highly
up.
recommend it. Highly
Yes.
recommend it. Can I ask one question about the data review meeting? So this is there anything that you want me to communicate back to our partners at BJCTA, that specifics that you're looking for? Or is it just kind of our contractual details that are lined out?
Right, I can come up with a list of questions, but I think the intention is to go deeper than the monthly reports.
Okay.
And do some more critical analysis of the fixed routes. I also know that there's other issues that are kind of out there in terms of consolidating, some of these services and where we stand in that process.
Okay.
But I think from a contractual standpoint, the intent is for us to have a annual opportunity to sit down with BJCTA leadership and really dig into some of the data points that they collect for their fixed route service and their on-demand microtransit service.
Okay. Well, I bet once the dust settles from this week's activities, then we could get something set up.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I was anticipating later in the month, but definitely want to do that type of thing. So, all right. Do we have any other old and new business? If not, we'll entertain a motion to adjourn. All in favor, say aye. Aye, meeting adjourned. Thank you.